There are tons of prediction videos for this year's E3. A whole bunch of creators out there coming up with a whole bunch of ideas of what they expect is going to be revealed this year. Well, I didn't want to do the same thing everyone else was doing, so I decided to come up with a list of things that should happen at E3, but we're probably not going to see them. Let's begin. Number 1, Nintendo announcing a non-portable version of the Nintendo Switch. Now, I know guys, you're gonna kill me for this one, but just hear me out. This is an idea that a lot of other people have had, but I think it's becoming more and more realistic that they should be doing something like this. There have been rumors that Nintendo's been struggling with manufacturing enough Switches simply because some of the components they're using are hard to come by. Things like the screen, which they simply can't make enough of because right now you've got Apple and Samsung fighting for the exact same screens to put in their own devices like their cell phones and stuff. Something that's working against Nintendo right now is that people simply can't buy these Switches easily in stores. So if there was to be a cheaper model that they could produce for like $100 less that would be easier to manufacture, well then they probably should do it. By losing portability, they make a far cheaper device that is not only cheaper to manufacture, but also cheaper to sell to the consumers. Really, it's a win-win. Number 2, Sony announcing a brand new portable version of the PlayStation 4. Now, the PlayStation 4 is a couple of years old now, and they probably could minimize the hardware just small enough to make it into a portable form factor, kind of like the Switch. This idea might seem kind of basic, but the reason why I think Sony should do it and not a company like Microsoft is because Sony had already produced the PSP and the PlayStation Vita. Now those two platforms were good in their own rights, though the PlayStation Vita really fell hard. It's kind of interesting to me that the PlayStation Vita still keeps getting games produced for it even when it seemingly doesn't really exist on the marketplace anymore. I think there's a pretty good chance that Sony wants to make a PlayStation Vita 2, but after the kind of bad stuff that happened with the original Vita, they weren't really rushing to go to the market with another one. So forget calling it a Vita 2, let's call it the PlayStation 4 Portable. Basically, it would just be a portable version of the PlayStation 4 as it exists right now, but it doesn't have something like an optical drive on it or even a memory card slot or game card slot. All you would do on this system is digitally download classic PSP games, PlayStation Vita games, and any PlayStation 4 game that you have digitally, you can also play on this system portably. That's all this thing should be, a portable PlayStation 4 that utilizes the entire back catalog of every portable PlayStation game that they have ever released. And if none of that convinced you, just think about this. If Sony were to release a system like that right now, the day one library that this game system would have would completely surpass everything that currently exists on the Switch, making it very hard for Nintendo to catch up. But while we're on the topic of PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita games, number 3, get PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita games on PlayStation 4. Come on, guys, this is a basic one. There are some pretty interesting games on both of those platforms that we should be able to play on the PlayStation 4 right now. I don't know why Sony hasn't done this, but I know there's a whole bunch of PSP games and PlayStation Vita games that are digitized and on the PlayStation Store. I can buy them right now, but I can only play them on the PSP or the PlayStation Vita. Make these games available on the PlayStation 4 through emulation or something. Just do it. It's easy money. Like crazy easy money. Number 4, Microsoft and Oculus announcing a partnership for the new Xbox Scorpio to do VR gaming in room scale. Now, we've got VR gaming in room scale with the HTC Vive, but it takes a pretty beefy computer to do that. From everything I've seen, the Scorpio is apparently a very powerful system. So if Microsoft partnered up with Oculus to release a package of the Scorpio and the new Oculus setup, they'd be able to do room scale VR at a cheaper price point than the HTC Vive while also providing technology that is far superior to the PlayStation VR. I think it's a win. I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing a lot of interesting things get announced at E3 this year, and while I'm pretty sure that none of these things I just talked about are going to be announced, if they did, that'd be pretty awesome. And honestly, I'd love to see them happen.